So Tilen, come here. What will you speak about?
So today we're gonna speak about game of points and think about what that means, and I will prepare the presentation and we can start.
Okay. Yeah. Tilen finished the European Championship at 4th place, and his presentation will be about points. He was 4th, 1 point behind the 3rd place. So, game of points shall begin now.
Thanks, Gaspar. So yeah, as Gaspar said, I was just a little bit short of podium, and when Gaspar invited me for this lecture, I didn't really know what to talk about. Usually I like to talk about technical stuff, but I know that that's not really the topic for evening, Sunday evening. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about this game we play, Game of Points, which is actually competitive paragliding, and I'm gonna relate the subject to our Europeans, which were this year, this August in Kruševo, Macedonia. This year we had a really strong team, Slovenian team. It was me, Juri Vidic, Jož Napred, Jože Molek, Primo Suša, Bojan Gabršek, and for the first time, for a long time actually, also female, Lara Leban, so one applause for her, please. And for the first time in history, also had a team leader, which is kind of was a big deal for us. So, all in all, I was at the end just 1 point from the podium, so that's what we're gonna talk about today: how to miss the podium by just 1 point. And following just 5 steps, I can pretty much guarantee you will miss the podium, or just I won't promise that you can make it, but you can miss it for sure. So as you see, the first thing that I really want to talk about is preparation, because for me preparation is more or less everything. It's the most important thing of flying when you're on ground. And I learned this on our Europeans again the hard way. So I think on the 5th task I was flying really good. I was in the leading angle, everything was going well. So then just the finish of the race was in front of us, and I was in a perfect position, actually winning position. So the thing was that the day before we had end of speed section which was outside of the goal line, and on this task it was similar. So we had one turn point really close to the goal. So I thought immediately that is because it was the same goal as the day before. I thought that it was end of speed section, so I was in a position to win. I went for it, did the turn point the first, and then just chilled out and flight relaxed to the goal. All the pilots behind me passed me, and I was looking strange, like why they're such in a hurry. And then I saw that the end of speed section, so when your time stops, was actually at the goal. So I just gave them 5 minutes, and that's how I lost the task actually. And it was from the position that I was in, it was just more or less gliding. So I learned it the hard way again, so you don't have to. I kind of think that preparation is really important, and you should always, task briefings are fine and you should always attend them, but always go through the task by yourself. And of course double check it. What really helps for me is trying to visualize and memorize the task. Usually it's just only a few points, and standing from on the ground you can pretty much visualize where the task is going, so that really helps. And as much preparation you can do on the ground, that will help you to fly better in the air, and that's why it's so important. So later on you can focus more on flying and decisions and not what the task really is. Also, another thing you can do on the ground is when the task is set, if you have good instruments like with maps, or if you have a map of terrain, just try to predict where the race will go, what the possibilities are, what the scenarios could be, what the strategies could be, and stuff like that. And this year we had a team leader, which was Mitja Jancic. She's also somewhere here. This was actually really helpful. We had also separate team briefings after the general briefing, and we went through the task together. And that really helps because you hear opinions from others, and usually if we have similar opinions about the task, that also means that other pilots will think the same. And if you hear something really different, that also kind of sets into your mind that that is possible. So as much information, as much as preparation you can do on the ground, that will help you later on. Some things are obvious, of course, maintaining well equipment, flying gliders you really know you're comfortable with, you're not afraid of it, having all the things prepared with your harness and stuff like that. Those are, I mean, it's obvious, but there are some really small things that can influence your flying a lot. Like stuff like, I don't know, batteries, your wallet, stuff like that. That can actually, bother you through the air, and that's when you make mistakes. And it's just, overall, they're not really that important, but if you think about it in the air, if you're not really focused, that is actually what makes you make mistake, actually. So for me, more or less, I have a routine. I always check my glider first and then go through the harness, and then I prepare my instruments and all that stuff like water, food, clothing. I usually try to go on the same place on the takeoff and stuff like that. And this is just a personal thing, but having a routine, I think that's really good. That prevents you from forgetting stuff and makes you prepare faster and also with quality. And having a good preparation is really important because that allows you to have the right mindset. By mindset, I mean the state of mind that you are before you go into the air, which is kind of what I find myself just prior to the takeoff falling. I have a different mindset that helps me forget all the things on the ground and really prepare on the task. And with Yuri Vidic, we always talk on competitions, talk about the importance of the first task. And why is it so important? Well, the first task on a long competition will actually define your mindset, your strategy. If you do really good from the first day on, then you're more into, you already have a good result, and you're not really trying to make up, you're just trying to maintain that position. Or what usually happens with me is that I don't really fly good on the first task, and then I need to improve, and then I need to attack, and then I need to fly better than otherwise I would. So it's kind of a really big thing, and although I end up usually, with the bad first task, I end up in general classification quite good, but I still think that having a good first task, so flying maybe a little bit reserved just to make one base result, can help you a lot. And we talked about preparation. As I said, that will really help you prepare, help you with the right mindset. And that more or less comes with experience. It's not something you can learn, or some people just have it, just this attitude towards competition. But with more competitions, with more experience, you will kind of find yourself in this configuration. And in general, I think that we have more or less two types of flying, so in the mountains and in the flats. And good pilots like world champion, European champions and stuff like, and people like that, they can fly good in either mountains or flats. Although the flying is completely different and the tactics are completely different. So for the first two tasks on the Europeans, so 1 month prior to Europeans, we had a really nice comp in the Greifenburg in Austrian Alps. And I was flying really good, and I had like this, I was aggressive with going in front and stuff like and exposing myself and gaining a lot of leading points, which is in the mountains I think it's easier to do because your flying is more defined by the terrain rather than weather. And in the mountains, like in this area that we are here, you can use ridges to increase your average speed because you don't really need to thermal midway through the ridge. You just need to assign a couple of critical points on the task where you need to gain altitude. So that means, I don't know, going through the valley or connecting to another ridge and stuff like that. So that is kind of some typical flying in the mountains. Routes, as I said, are more defined in a way that ridges and terrain defines where you will fly. And although it's easier to go in front because you don't really risk that much, again, because the path is more defined on your flying, for the same reason it's sometimes harder to catch up. So if you make a mistake, if you fall behind, guys are flying, it's obvious which way you have to go, and then it's hard to catch up. Also, group flying in mountains, it's usually not really rewarded. So that means that winners usually come from breakaways, people that go, I don't know, early solo in front, or they do something different at the end. And it's not really that we're flying a big group within a few seconds to the goal. So, yeah, as I said, after first two tests in Kruševo on Europeans, I was flying, with this mindset that I should always, when I have an opportunity, go in front, be aggressive, gain a lot of leading points and all that stuff. And I just had really bad results. And then I said to myself, okay, that's maybe not the way to fly, because although I didn't thought I was making bad decisions, the group was always faster than me, and I ended up late in the goal. So then I kind of changed my mind and said, okay, let's try different. Now we're in the flat. It's completely different flying from mountains. And in the flat, you usually have, endless possibilities to make the task. And it's really more dependent on the weather. So on the clouds, on the wind, and not so much on the terrain, because of course it's flat. And one thing that I found the most important in flats is finding the best energy lines. Energy lines are, it's a term from sailplanes. They use it quite a lot, and the best example that I can give you is like a cumulustrada. So when you have a lot of cumulus in one line, that the wind is drifting, and the clouds are just in one line. So flying in that line is actually the best energy I would say in vicinity, because there you have the most lift, the most energy is rising. So that means that you can fly. You don't need to thermal there a lot, and you will find a lot of thermals. And usually, you just you can, once you get to the cloud base, you can really make great distance without thermaling. And in the flats, although, for example, here we don't really have clouds, those energy lines somehow exist, and I'm pretty sure that everybody that flew in the flat on a competition, you can see that when pilots separate by, I don't know, 500 meters, and like in a few minutes you can gain or lose a couple of 100 meters. So this is kind of a fine art, which is, I don't know, again, it's only experience that will get you to understand and to recognize how to correct the lines towards the group, of course. And this is really important in the flat, and this can give you a big advantage. The next thing is discipline. It's really not my best thing, but in group flying, which is the case on flatlands, a lot of times you end up on the top of the group or a little bit in front, and you have actually the opportunity to go in front to gain some leading points and stuff like that. And usually those groups are overtaking each other. So one moment you're in the first group, then the guys behind you correct the line or something. They overtook you, and then you're back chasing them, and then you overtook him. So it's kind of a rolling process. And it's really important that, in this case, in this scenario, you have a lot of opportunities to go in front to, I don't know, fly something different. But I think that's important that you don't really take advantage of every opportunity you get. Usually, it's enough if you just take advantage of one, usually more at the end. So you're flying in a group, maintaining your position, and then at the end you can make a move that will actually give you big advantage, or even win the task or stuff like that. So going out of the gaggle is more risky, of course, on the flats, because it's harder to fly fast, and group is usually faster. But there are some occasions that it's really rewarding. And for example, like Primo Susha on this Europeans on second task, he was flying in the gaggle, always maintaining good position, and then for the last, I don't know, 15Ks, he decided to go his own way. The gaggle didn't follow him, and he ended up winning the task for, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes, which is huge. And that was just one right decision that he made at the end, and gave him a big advantage. So another more important thing is controlling the gaggle, which means that you kind of always end up staying high in the group. You try to be higher as others, so others then that are lower show you what is happening with there, so you can make better decisions on that. And I would say that your ability to control the gaggle is equal to your ability to thermal really good. And for example, Yuri Vidic is the thermal god, as we call him, and he always, I don't know how he does it, maybe he will have a presentation one day, I would like to hear that, but he really knows how to thermal, so he ends up flying higher the whole task than others. So in this kind of sense, for him it's easier to make always a good position at the end. And another thing is, so when you have on the flats, you have a lot of thermals. Usually they also can be quite close, and one are stronger than others. So for you, in order to gain some positions, it's really important to always move as quickly as you can to the best place for thermaling. And I see a lot of pilots, they get a thermal, and it's a good thermal, I don't know, 2 meters per second, but just 300 meters away, someone is thermaling with, I don't know, 2.5 meters per second. And for the first moment, you don't really think, it's worth it going there to grab that thermal. But at the end, it's always better, and it's always important to get it there fast, because the time difference that you lose thermaling weaker thermal than going there, you lose, I don't know, 1 minute because you're gliding to the next thermal, but then you have a stronger lift. It's always, more or less, it's always works out, so you end up gaining more altitude in the same time. This is something that McCready really, also again from sailplanes, he more or less defined it for them. And it's what we know as speed to fly. So when you, in this sense, if you see some guy in front of you that has a really good thermal, it's the best way that you go with as fast as you can, so with full speed. Although you lose more altitude getting there, the time difference that you will gain will end up in bigger altitude for you. Okay. Another thing. So step 3, focus. As you can see, this puppy doesn't really, his attention span is quite short, and he has troubles, focusing on one thing. Um, and sometimes, we're flying. We're actually, our sport, I don't think it's that easy. Also physically and mentally, it's quite demanding. You can be in the air for 5-6 hours, and that's quite a lot time to be really focused. So everything must be in the right order in order for you to be focused on flying and making good decisions. And some things, I don't know, for Primo Susha works usually that he has to take off as soon as possible in order to be focused for the race. So as soon as possible to take off, 1 hour and a half before the task really starts. That helps for him. I also try to do that going in the air as soon as possible, because for me it's easier to focus in the air and just relax and focus on the task in front of you. And again, good preparation is the base for everything, and also here it will really help you. It will make you easier to focus and to be concentrated through the whole task. And as I said, I think our sport is quite demanding, so that's why it's really important that you hydrate and eat in the air. Although you're just sitting there, usually we are sweating, you're working, you're burning energy, so you need to replace that in order to fly the whole task efficiently. And this is something that a lot of pilots don't do actually, and I'm quite surprised how they manage, with all that, because they end up landing dehydrated, without energy and stuff like that. It's not necessary, and I think it's better. And another thing is, with the longer the task is, at the end, your decisions are more important for your position and for your score. And the longer you fly, if you don't hydrate, if you don't energize, you lose concentration and you end up making bad decisions. Also, other physical needs, of course, you know what I mean. In the air, there are a lot of solutions. Josh Napret is the grand maestro of this. Usually, after 5 minutes of air, he's already sticking his leg out with tube, and releasing his ballast. So this is, of course, one thing that you always need to take care of. But it's not always easy to stay focused, And on these Europeans, it was particularly hard on takeoff. And as you can see on the left, for the ladies, it was not easy. And on the right, even for us, we end up staying a bit longer on the takeoff than usual, right? So it's not always easy, it's hard, but if you want to miss the podium, you need to do it. So being focused is all about observing, when you're flying, observing all the surroundings. And I think if preparation is the main thing on the ground, observation is, for me, the main thing of flying in the air. And weather, it's not always as it's forecast. Of course, it's just a forecast, and you always need to take an eye for the weather, see the changes, recognize the changes, or if it's not as they said on the task briefing, that happens also a lot of times. Then you need to create your own image about what's going on, and for that you need to observe whatever indicators you can find. So wind, lakes, birds, I don't know, other pilots, all the things. If you have teammates on the ground, they can, also let you know what's going on. And using all that information, all that different stuff that you can see what's going on with the air, has a big influence on your flying and on your decisions. And that's kind of, for me, the biggest thing, because, I don't know, you can fly following others and not really thinking about what's going on, but that will never give you the edge over your competitors. But if you make your own image about what's going on, then you can also make decisions, and with time, with experience, if you get good with it, so You know, that are the cases when some pilot goes, I don't know, completely different route, and he ends up winning the task or something, and then everybody's like wondering, why did he do that? Why, you know, what was his mind process to do that? And usually it's due to he saw something there, you know, he saw the bird, he saw the wind is changing or something, like smokes are going in the same direction from different places, so you know there's a thermal or something. So that's, and the sooner you make that decision, usually the bigger advantage you get. Of course, it doesn't really works out all the time, and in those situations, it's really important to never give up. So I have another example, not from European, well, also from Europeans, but maybe let's talk about the paragliding World Cup that I just arrived yesterday from. So in Saint-André, in France, we had the first task was on Tuesday, and it was quite powerful day, strong thermals, strong winds and stuff like that. And after the start, I got a really good thermal. I went in front. For me, it was more or less obvious where to go. We needed to pass one ridge, and I was just, it looked like it's gonna be easy, so I went for it, and end up in just the most turbulent lee site I was ever flown in. You know, it was more than 10 meters of wind blowing over the hill and stuff like that, so it was just horrible. So it took me, so then it flushed me out again, and I was kind of caught up in a really big mess, so it ended up, I ended up like 1 hour making the first turn point. So I was eventually I was 1.5 hours late in goal. And I was already like giving up after the first try. I saw that I already lost so many times. It's, you know, it doesn't make any point to fly. You know, it's just that I'm never gonna make up. But I kind of stick to it. You know, I didn't want to give up, and it's not really at the end for the result, but for me it's more mentally, because you have a task in front of you, and for me it's really important to finish the task because I like to finish things. And I think this approach is really useful in paragliding, because a lot of times weather changes with time, and you know, we had situations that, I don't know, you made a mistake, you fall behind, the first group went, but then the first group got into trouble. So and then you can catch up quite a lot. And that actually happened on the second task. You know, again, after the start, we had some detail that wasn't really nice. We again were caught up in some lee side. Others went in front. It was already on 10K, so like deja vu. But this time it worked out. I was then catching up a lot, so in half an hour I was already with them again. So it's really important to never give up. And although sometimes, you know, it doesn't work out at all. And this is the final step that I think it's really important for you to succeed. It's first to fail. And because from your mistakes and from your failures, you can learn really a lot, and this is the best thing you can do. We all make mistakes. We all, you know, end up with a bad result or something. But the important thing is what you make out of it. And I think that success is just a big puzzle of failures. And that's why it's really important that after each task that you flew, it's important to debrief. So just go through your head, like what happened, what decisions did you make, which were good, which weren't good. Try to evaluate, you know, what was the key moment that either you succeed in the task or you didn't. And recognize that, acknowledge that, and with this kind of process after the task, you can make a really big progress. So trying to learn something new, even though it's, I don't know, just a small thing, but try to learn something new with every flight you have, and for sure you will progress a lot quicker. But this is not the end. We have also step 6. And our game of points, you know, it's all good and everything, and sometimes for some people it's way more important than it is. And I just think that the biggest thing, you know, is for you to enjoy, because at the end, what you have from paragliding, you know, you don't make a living or money or anything like that. But like the true success for me is gaining respect from gaining friends, gaining their respect and self-expression. So flying freely without really being worried about the numbers or, you know, the result, that always ends up like for you being frustrated and worried about the results and blah blah blah, because at the end it doesn't matter. What matters is, you know, making new friends and gaining their respect, and that's pretty much all for me.